How's everybody doing? Welcome to tonight's exhibit reception hosted by Photo Art Pavilion. The Space Between, which is really an interesting dynamic in photography that we often overlook. And I believe that the entries that have come in, I've just had a quick opportunity to look at them for the first time. Holy cow. Jessica, you had a very difficult time, I'm sure, pulling together this exhibit, whittling it down to just 50 entries that were selected into the show. Really fantastic work from what I've seen so far. I went through everything very quickly, and I know Jessica is going to just do a great job bringing this forward for us. So I have all of you, good job keeping your microphones muted for the time being. We'll probably open up the floor as we get towards the end of the presentation of Jessica's reviews. And we just want you to sit back, relax, enjoy the artwork, and we'll just dig in little by little as we go. So Jessica, if you want to share the exhibit with us, or at least get the home screen up, we'll get started. The Space Between, a virtual photography exhibit hosted by Photo Art Pavilion. So as you all know, I'm sure by now you all know that Photo Art Pavilion is an all-encompassing community of art photographers. Jessica and I are the owners of Photo Art Pavilion. Within the platform, we provide the ability for consumers to shop, artists to have the ability to learn. We teach marketing skills. We teach a lot of different things. We do curation services, critique services, and so forth. Of course, we do these wonderful exhibits on a rotating basis. Usually we do about 5 a year. And the display opportunities with Photo Art Pavilion are just outstanding, nice and easy, clean, and quite affordable. So our little enterprise, we've been chugging along here since 2019 and growing and getting stronger every day because of beautiful art photographers like yourselves. So we really are very grateful that you can be with us tonight, that you take time to participate in these open calls and enjoy the craft of art photography. Hi, I'm Joanne. I'm the one with the short hair in that picture. And that's Jessica on the other side. She's the one with the long hair. I only say that because we need new headshots. As you know, women tend to change their hairstyles quite often. But we're very passionate about what it is that we do for you, for the art photography community, and we just really enjoy doing all of these different open calls and all the other things that we do going along the way. So we love supporting all of you, and we leave that chat room open in this meeting. So if there's anything that you'd like to add as the commentaries are going along, please jump on in. Put your comments there. I'll be monitoring the chat room while Jessica goes over the art pieces one by one. And let's talk about Jessica for a minute, my beautiful business partner. We've been in business together since 2007. We have grown as a team, stronger and stronger each and every day. We work really hard day after day, working through a lot of different tasks that need to get done in order to bring you what we hope is a seamless presentation of not just these exhibits, but everything that we do for Photo Art Pavilion for all of you, whether it be our social media presence, our direct email campaigns, our marketing newsletters, our J&J Photo Art Marketing Cafes, our webinars. There's a lot that we do for you behind the scenes. And it doesn't just happen willy-nilly. We put a lot of effort, a lot of time into what it is that we do for you, that we can bring to you. And we also listen. We listen very clearly to what it is that you, the art photographers, are in need for. So please always reach out to us. We're here to help you. We're here to help you grow. And like I said, Jessica has been in this business with me since '07. She's well accomplished in her art photography career as well. And she brings a lot to the table for us tonight.
Ooh, Thank you, Joanne. And thank you, everyone, for attending and carving out this time to be with us live. And that's the beauty of being live is all the craziness that happens. But with this exhibit, I have to say, there were so many different ways to see this theme, to connect with the idea of the space between. And the work is just outrageous, at least in my opinion. You got to think about maybe the use of negative space, or perhaps the space between. So the distance between two subjects, even if you think about maybe something that's present or absent, the space between time, the idea of perhaps a reflection, so what's real versus mirrored, and of course, patterns. And it definitely made me think a little bit harder about this theme and how you all were able to put it together, or at least submit your idea of what this means. So as we move through each piece, I'm going to share personally how I experienced the art and basically what was it that had me selected for this show. So speaking of the show, I know, Joanne, you quickly mentioned this exhibit, what you're seeing here, the images I'm going to be showing you in just a moment, only represents about roughly 12% of the submissions that came in, which is pretty wild. So if you're currently watching and you're one of the displaying artists, congratulations. With our process, it's all blind. So we utilize the cafe system. And with that, as a juror, I can only see an artist ID number. I don't know their name. I have no idea. So this is purely by art. I am reviewing each image to make sure it's a sound piece, it's interesting, it's within the theme, and from there, it's then selected, narrowed down. And I gotta say, I think I went through this about 8 different times, all the different entries and making those selections and whittling down to the top 50. So with that, I'll stop rambling and welcome to the space between. So again, with what I was just talking about with the artist, 50 images. So with those 50 images, we have 48 talented artists that are across the US displaying in this exhibit through 17 states. And I know you're here for the art, so let's jump in. First up is Optimistic Adventure by Barbara. Oh my goodness. This, to me, the colors, the moment, the layering, not only is it the space of the viewer viewing into the scene itself with the plane, but also you got to look at that negative space and how it's working and how that size of the plane versus that cloud structure. There's just so much going on, and it caught my eye. And I got to say, perfect time of day, great coloring throughout. I also love that there's a bright spot right there where the plane is like basically pulling through into the scene. It's a very interesting capture. I love the texture, and congratulations, Barb. Next is Early Afternoon Shadows. I love black and white, and to me, this was rather interesting just for the fact that by converting this to black and white, you're able to simplify the viewer's way of seeing. You're able to see then those leading lines that pull you down through that hallway. The space between, we have the repeating pattern of the light coming through the windows, the even the tiles of the floor. There's a lot of dimension going on within this scene. And this definitely caught my eye to be able to be a part of the space between. So thank you, Chris, for presenting this image. Next, we have Rolling Hills of Color, Ireland, and this is by Steve. This scene, all right, so there's a couple different elements. Obviously, we have the coloring, right? So now we have textures going on with those colors between the green and that earthy reddish brown coloring. We have the lines that are within the land and different types of lines going on. I gotta say, where the your I guess divider of the land here is almost dead center. I almost feel like it should be a little bit more perfect, but otherwise very interesting and definitely fits our theme. And the ability to have all those different sections going on in this scene just makes your eye just kind of keep moving through it. So thank you, Steve, for presenting this image. Next, we have on pavement border lines. This image is really interesting. Again, textures, loving the textures. And with the exhibit theme, the space between and the minimalistic styling, having the simplicity of each like texture is in its own little section here, right? You have that section of the grass, you have the like the concrete spacing in the center with those shadowy holes within, and then of course you have that pavement right above, and to have each little section kind of cornered off and neatly presented, this is something as a photographer I would not stop and photograph. And that's why I think I love it a little bit more, just because, again, it's a unique perspective. It's something different. It's something I would not stop and capture. But with this theme and what we're presenting tonight, it's rather interesting to see this set up in such a way. And I love that you do have your horizontal lines nice and straight there. Your vertical lines are looking good. Fantastic capture. So thank you, Megan, for sharing this image with us. Next, we have Della Corte, Blue Horizon by Gabriella. The leading lines, it's all about leading lines, right? You want to be pulled into the image. So this has a little bit of the motion blur, or I don't know if it's just a long exposure, but moved a little bit. So having that motion, that kind of captures time a bit. Right. So now if you're doing, you're slowing down your shutter, you're creating that motion, it shows the time within the frame. Now, if you look beyond the road itself, we then have the houses, and having the spaces between the houses is rather interesting. I am also loving the colors. So the blues of that sky against the opposing color of that gold within the, I'm assuming it's the side of a street there, the maybe it's dirt, I'm not sure. Anyway, also seeing the lights. So, or I think it's lights. So directly in the center, you have that yellow rectangle, and to the left is another rectangle. So the space between that, your space between the parallel lines that are right there in between, a lot of interesting spacing going on within this frame. So thank you, Gabriella, for sharing this. Trinity by Robert. You just kind of get sucked into the scene. So all of this coming together, the spacing. So really nice spacing with the lines here on this road. It looks like you're getting lost in the middle of nowhere, which looks fantastic. But seeing the poles to your right and also the different signs, it's all these little sections of space in between, your lovely negative space within that sky. You know, even if there's no clouds during that time frame when you're shooting, it helps to create that vastness, that emptiness, or the void. And having the space between those two realms is really interesting. So that negative space above, where you have in your foreground, you're spacing between the two roads with that double line. Very interesting, lovely texture. And I love that you stopped right there where those cracks were going through. Very interesting as well. So thank you, Robert, for this entry. Next, we have Rest. It's interesting. It's simple, and that's part of that minimalistic theme that we were looking into and presenting. And Peter did a great job capturing this, the space between the gentleman on the bench and looking up, that negative space. So let's say if he shot this and had the gentleman dead center, you wouldn't have that void above. You wouldn't have that that interest. So using the rule of thirds to be able to put your subject down a little bit further in the scene definitely helps to anchor the overall composition. Having the reflection going on within this. So now you have its own, see, this is how my brain works. So you have the reflection going on below, right? So he's like being grounded, he's resting, and then it's almost like the void above is like dreamland. It's a blank canvas. It's something for him to envision. So there's definitely a lot of elements of space being utilized within this very simple, very classic kind of capture. So thank you, Peter, for sharing this entry. Next, we have read reflection. Rather interesting styling. Again, as a photographer, I would not stop and photograph the reeds in the water and then modify it or enhance it in such a way. So to see this, I thought was rather interesting. To add that circle elements, I'm assuming it's an additional image or a double composition, putting that image, that circle into the frame, and then allowing the two sets of reeds to create that void, that spacing in between. Is rather interesting. It's nicely balanced. I do like where you put the circle within the frame. I feel like if you put it down lower, it would have been a little bit too heavy. So having that moved up gives that negative spacing, a nice balance between the two. So thank you, Jean, for presenting this image with us. Icicle in darkness. So I gotta say, I love the juxtaposition between the two different colorings, right? So you have your shadow and then you have your light going on and the icicle down the center. Also how clean and clear that icicle is with the highlights and so on going on with those bubbles inside the icicle, and then having that shadow right behind it that really helps it stand out. So the space between. So I'm assuming your main focus was that darker space to help highlight the icicle within this frame. I do love how it's a nice balance between the two worlds. And I wonder how it would present in black and white. Just curious, putting out there for the artist. So thank you, Sarah, for this entry. All right, Arch Atonics by Andy. Very interesting capture. Again, I'm assuming you're looking up, and I don't know as a photographer if I would capture this. And with the space between as the theme, there's the negative spacing and the white around the frame. There's that almost like the that tannish grayish tone going around. So that's another layer of that negative coloring going on. And then you have all that detail in the center. So all of these different lines are pulling you in and you're able to see. And it's almost like you can chop this image into triangles and you're getting all different perspectives or all different types of styling in this, which is really interesting. So being able to have the space between the different layers, getting to that center, the space between the orbs, those spheres going on in there, and then even the space within the X itself and having the texture in there. Really interesting. So thank you, Andy, so much for sharing this image. Next, we have Torrey Pine's Silhouette. So, and this is by Clay. I thought this was really, really sweet moment. I'm hoping it was a sweet moment. So seeing all right, so space between. So we have the physical space, right, of the adults with the child, and then the space between where they are versus going down in that frame from that little cliff. And then I was even thinking, taking it even further, the space between. So not only is there physical space between the child and the two sets of adults, but space between the age, the time. That's like, it just shows another layer of space. And it's almost reflective. If you look down at that bottom right area, you have the two, like it looks like a pole and then like a little branch coming up. It's the space between those two. So they kind of like balance out, which is really interesting. And the time or that moment that you captured this, it's such a beautiful like overwash of that orange. So it must have been like a foggy or hazy, I'm sorry, hazy element going on during sunset. And now you have that atmospheric condition going on too, which, there's another element of the space between. So not only do you have the crisp lines and that shadowing of the silhouette, but also the different perspective of having that foggy, hazy scene in the back. So very interesting. So thank you, Clay, for presenting this. Next is Alone by Ingrid. So I like this just for thinking of one, it's the space between. So here I am, the viewer, looking at this goose that's pretty far away. So the space between the two of us, right? And it's a little bit more interactive of a scene to me. And then from there, breaking it down into the space between. So this goose is in between the two spaces. So here you, of course, the foreground to the background, but you also have land and sky. It's just an interesting way to see this. And I do like that you didn't kind of twist the camera to make sure that, it was a nice straight line between the land and the sky, and you kept straight with the goose itself. So that proves a little bit more interest. And I do love how it's a little bit more of a vignette at the bottom it just adds that weight to the scene. And it really does help the eye balance out the overall capture here. So thank you, Ingrid, for your art. Next is Goblin Portal by Ricky. So this was interesting. I kept coming back to this one. And it's not truly minimalistic, but it is quite interesting if you break it down as far as your coloring that's going on in here. So taking the reds, separating it from the blues, you do have this great balance of tones going on. From there, it's almost like that blue sky takes on its own shape, or it's like a portal, I guess. It's very interesting. And then from there, you dig deeper into the scene. You have the space between those two rock formations that come in up and around. And then you come right through as a portal, perfectly titled. And then from there, you're able to see that other rock formation in the back, and the spacing just flows, and it's just very interesting. So I did come back a couple times to this one, and I do feel that it is a good presentation of the space between. So thank you, Ricky, for this entry. Next is Luminescence by Andy. So contrast, loving it, right? So space between, you have two different ways of seeing this. You have the darker layer with the textures going on. You have the leaf itself that has these perfect veins going through it. So now you're looking at the spaces between the veins. And there's a lot here to keep looking through. The motion of the leaves behind. So you have the light leaf versus the dark leaves, right? So now you're looking at all these different dark leaves and the way they all flow and intertwine with each other or leave good spacing between. But really your eye hones in on that lighter leaf, that white leaf, and being able to see the details of the veins in between the thicker ones versus the little ones. There's just a lot to see here and to take in. And I do think this was rather interesting as far as being represented for the theme of this exhibit. So thank you, Andy, for your entry. Next, we have Nature's Beauty by David. So I do love that you kind of broke the rules, right? And had the bird dead center. And I kept coming back to this one too. I feel like this is a hard one because it's not true to the space between, but then it is, right? So now you have your main subject, which is this bird. And it's in the middle of this, I'm just going to say like the web of branches, right? So now you have all these different little spaces between the branches and these little berries, I think they're berries. And to be able to just have your eye just kind of bounce around, and then you're kind of seeing these different shapes in between the branches, you kind of dig into it. It's just the more you look at it, the little bit more interesting it gets. Same idea as far as your leading lines. You have these two branches. They're a little bit more thicker, and they're on either side of the bird. So now you have the space between those branches, which are highlighting by that bird. And it's just an interesting capture when you start digging into it. And then even, so space between, you have the difference of comparison as far as the hard matter of the branches. And then of course the soft feathers of the bird. It's a different type of spacing between the two. So thank you, David, for this capture. Next, we have Fishing at Dawn by Howard. It's very minimalistic. So with this, oh my goodness, I'm assuming this is a film shot. There's a lot of great texture going on just because of assuming it's film and the space between. So I'm seeing the space between the gentleman on the boat versus the land, right? So that's one. You have the land and the boat, and then the space between, you have the tree. From there, having that negative space of the sky looks great. You have the reflection going on as far as the gentleman on the boat and also that tree, that little blip of a tree. There's a lot of interesting elements as you're digging in. And from there, it's even, you have the slight little spacing between the branches on top. The overall scene is very minimalistic in styling, and I definitely thought that this was a good fit for the space between exhibits. So thank you, Howard, for your entry. Next is Budapest Red by Carmine. So having the leading lines in this scene pulls you in. Good shadowing, good textures, good exposure overall for this area. So now your leading lines are pulling you in. You see the person in the red coat is in emotion, like it's a motion blur. So now we're all of a sudden seeing the difference in time. You also have the blur versus the sharpness of the hallway here. And then of course the pillars all along the leading lines just pull you in. So I thought this was rather interesting. Even the space between the lights above, waiting for the person in the red to get into the middle of the frame. So thank you, Carmine, for this capture. Next, we have Access by Matt. And this I thought was rather interesting. So here we have the top part where it has all these little fins to it. And again, spaced nicely in different sections. Not only are they, because of how we're viewing it, you have the different spacing between each one, the minimalistic styling of capturing this. But I also do love the lights, the lighting within this. So having your left corner kind of like a gradual darkness helps to weight down the overall scene. You do have that little light of color that kind of comes from the right all the way through to your left side and going up. And just seeing the different textures and pulls going on within the structure itself is rather interesting. And from there, even circle versus square and the space between the two. So thank you, Matt, for this entry. Next, we have Earth and Sky. So this scene, I was loving the different stylings. So of course, spacing. We have the spacing between each structure here. You have nice spacing with that. You also have the spacing between your sky and then the structure itself. And to be able to show the two, I thought was great. Let's see. And then of course, having it black and white. So now that adds a little bit more focus on your textures, your lines within the scene. And not only that, but also, you know, your sharpness versus your softness. So you have the wisping clouds going through and then that nice structure going on at the bottom. But thank you, Lori, for your entry. Next, we have Caution. All right, so obviously the lines, everything's spaced out. It's one of those scenes, again, I would not capture as a photographer, and I thought it was rather interesting. So I love that I don't even know what those are called. The triangle thingies at the bottom, the dividers, whatever they are, they're such a bright yellow. And then you have the white walkway going through, you have the grate going on. And then, of course, the three yellow pillars with their shadows. And everything is kind of like uniform in a way, with also having this. It's the at the bottom, all the way at the bottom, you have that darker pavement, and that's a nice wavy line, whereas everything else is pretty structured. So the space between all of these different elements, and then of course having that pavement that doesn't have too much going on and really does create that little bit more of a minimalistic styling. So thank you, Judith, for this entry. Next, we have Mount Blanc 4 by Judith. So another interesting scene here, we have this nice mountaintop area, you have that little pool of water, so now you're seeing this the difference or spacing between the water itself, the textures of the mountain, and then that atmospheric condition going on top, which is more of a fog. So to show that, it's pretty interesting. And of course the space between, so now here we are standing on a mountain, and the space between the rest of that scene there. I do love how the water itself does stand out. The nice clean crispness of that line there, and then seeing the little bit of a reflection of the rock at hand. So, and then also the space between the two, seeing the mountain itself. So you have the bottom rock there below the water, and then going up. So the space between the two elements and the water in between. So thank you, Judith, for this entry. Next, we have Bison at Sunset by Deneen. So space between. It's like, how many times can I say the space between? I'm sorry, guys. So with this, the having the dark structure of the cloud coming through the scene, and then your foreground, and then having that bright yellow sun, like, pop of color coming up behind the bison to create that beautiful silhouette. The space between those two elements really helps to have that bison stand out. And then even looking a little bit further up, you have that bright yellow pop of color going up beyond the bison and that cloud, the darker cloud, and then another one below it. So you have a couple of different elements going on here to create that distance of space. So thank you, Deneen, for this scene. So 100 Years Reflected by Anne. I thought this was rather interesting because now here we are looking at the difference in time. And it took me a moment to like fully have this kick in, just for the fact that the reflection itself is such an older styled building versus the new skyscraper style that you're seeing the reflection through. So to have those two elements combine into one, and then from there, just a matter of time. So space between time. Then you have the physical space between each window pane for the newer building. And then the space between the actual windows within the older building. And then if you look a little bit further down, you then see the pillars are spaced out. It's a lot of different elements to be able to see, but I do love the actual reflection of the time difference between the two buildings. So thank you, Anne, for this entry. Early Morning Takeoff by Nick. So the perspective is rather interesting. Here you are, must be in a supper basket, right? You're up in the sky. You have these two other balloon tops that look like they're kind of popping through to your scene. And then you have the negative space of the sky and around the full view of the hot air balloon. But then if you look further into the scene, there is a tiny, tiny little balloon that's out there way in the distance. So not only do you have this beautiful negative spacing happening, but you also have different layers of spacing going on. And the colors look great. It looks like it must have had a good time. But the way this is framed, I thought this is really, really neat to have this moment. So thank you, Nick, for sharing this scene with us. Next, we have 4 and 5 by Vince. I don't know, this one, this one got me. So having the 4 ducks in the foreground, right? That's a nice, solid subject matter. And then if you look further into the scene, just to the left, you have 5 ducks all in a line. And these 2 sets of ducks are all set up where they're nice spacing. It's interesting. And then so you have the comparison between the 2 groups of ducks. Then you have the spacing between each duck in each group. And then you even have the layering of the foreground against, nice sharp edge right there of the foreground where it connects to the water. But then if you look further, you have that fog going on. So not only showing the difference of space or what's present or absent, but also the space in distance. So I thought this was really interesting for the theme. So thank you, Vince, for sharing your capture with us. Next, we have Calais San Miguel by Robert. So space between. So we have in that sky, you have your nice strong leading lines of the city, but in the sky itself, there must be some sort of festival or something going on, right? So you have these decorative stars going through and perfectly spaced out all the way down this street. From there, I'm also just seeing the space between the different windows with the door, even the stones on that sidewalk there. I want to call it a sidewalk. It's very, very thin to the right along that leading line. And from there, my eye keeps going to that little white spot to the right. And then it's almost like, seeing where it connects or what it's around and the spacing between it all. So thank you, Robert, for sharing this image with us. Next is Serenity by Anita. Oh my goodness. The lines in this are fantastic. The way the sand is soft, but then textured. The movement in it is great. Your light versus the shadow is fantastic. And of course, the space between. So all of these different curves and motions and layers are creating beautiful spacing between it all. I thought this was rather interesting between the lights, the darks, the textures, the softness. There's a lot going on. And of course, it's a beautiful monotone, basically, capture. So thank you so much, Anita, for sharing this with us. Next, we have Out of the Shadows by Bailey. Space between. So another way to see this exhibit, which was very interesting. Negative capture, right? It's a minimalistic styling of the moon itself. And then I'm staring at this and I'm just like, oh my goodness, the space between. So here we are, the viewers, and the space between us, right? And then it's actual space. So I thought this was an interesting take on the theme. It is a minimalist styling and it is an interesting subject. So thank you, Bailey, for this capture. Next, we have Robert Moses Waves, Black and White by Nicole. Beautiful capture here, black and white again. It's great. So space between the waves, you're creating that motion, being able to be there. It's the spacing of the waves, that fluid motion, the rough texture of the water versus the nice soft sky above, having that crisp horizontal horizon line going on. And then just digging in and seeing the different layers of spacing going on. So not only do you have that sky with that foreground of the sand and that texture, and then you have that brightness of the water and that wave popping up. So space between the waves, you're spacing between the sky and the foreground with your subject. I thought this is interesting, and it is minimalistic with having that nice soft sky going on. So thank you, Nicole, for sharing your image with us. Next is All Alone by James. A little bit more of a interesting take, minimalistic styling. You have the negative space of the white. From there, being able to have the textures, the structures of the hills here with the different lines going on, but also having the connective elements of you have the little branch connecting the two rock formations, and then you have the tree that stands up there by itself. So not only can you compare the two rock structures, but you can also compare the two tree matter, if you will, the full tree versus the branch that's coming up off to the side. I thought this is interesting to the styling itself. Again, it's not something I would normally work on or present. And again, I thought that was a little bit more interesting. So thank you, James, for sharing this image with us. Next, we have Shadows and Nothing by Jack. So Shadows and Nothing. Having it's similar to the other capture with the rock formations, but this one, for whatever reason, I thought was interesting as well and thought it should be presented. Having that blue, that really dark blue versus into black being presented, having the structure connect, but also within that connected structure going into the scene, you have those two rock structures that look like they touch, but they don't touch. And then from there, creating that negative space. The details between the smooth rocks versus the branches, the shadow of the branches is interesting comparison. And just moving your eye through the scene and seeing the different layers. You even have the different spacing. So here on that left-hand side of that rock formation, you have different lines going on, which creates that different spacing. So you have that red rock in between the two lighter, whiter kind of styling of rock. I don't know what it is. But again, it's just different ways to be able to see the types of space between in this scene. So thank you, Jack, for presenting this. Next, we have Taos by Michael. I thought this was definitely a bit more of the theme itself. So the space between. Having the color variations going on, right? You have that strong red split with that a little bit of like a shadowed white, and then having, I'm assuming there's steps going through the side of steps, and then seeing that motion. Definitely minimalistic styling, being able to see the different variations. So the space between each step, the space between that white with that red on that full background itself. Interesting take. I thought it was worth it for this theme. So thank you, Michael, for presenting this for the show. Next, we have Angel Gliding Above by Bill. Space between. The boat itself being so tiny in this frame versus that sky. The distance between the two I thought was really interesting. Even showing the water below, it looks like it could have been a little bit more of a longer exposure, which then creates that element of time being captured. I do wish that hotspot within the clouds wasn't so hot, but otherwise I thought this was a very interesting capture. Nice clean line for that horizon. It's also straight. And then from there, the difference between the foreground, the backgrounds, and being able to have those different elements where you have the darkness of the sky versus that darkness of the foreground, and then that pop of light coming through definitely creates that nice spacing, but also the distance between the boat and that cloud structure. So thank you, Bill, for taking that shot, and I hope you didn't get rained on. Next, we have Love's Embrace by Krystle. So the negative space of that center, that shadow, it's a little bit more of a heart. To me, it's, that is the subject here. And then you're looking at the petals, which then create that shape, that movement, and creating the space all around within this scene. Um, Even having the leading line from that top right petal coming in and connecting, and they're all kind of connecting all of these little lines. So I thought that was rather interesting as well. And then just seeing that motion all around. So thank you, Krystle, for presenting your take on the space between. Next, we have Heading Back by Lynn. There's a tiny, tiny little boat out there. You have these massive, massive mountains going on, and you have this tiny, tiny little boat going in that water down below. So you have the distance between the two, the distance within the cleanness, the structure of that water, right? So it's nice and sharp. And then you look up, and then now there's like that fog, that haze going. So you even have that space between those two elements. So that water, both elements of water, and you have the structure of the mountains there. And of course, that tiny little boat. Absolutely love the sizing in this, the overall view, the layering too of the mountains. So even you have both mountains kind of go and kind of cross into each other, which creates this nice motion. So I thought this was a very interesting take on the theme. So thank you so much, Lynn, for your entry. Next, we have The Launch by James. Space. Here we are, full on minimalistic styling as far as the capture. The sky was beautiful, looks like no clouds whatsoever. And you have this nice light streak from, I'm assuming it's one of the rocket ships going. So to have that nice bold brightness in the bottom, and then just pulls you up into the frame. I thought this was such a great and interesting capture, and to be presenting into the space between. So here we are between here and space. So thank you so much, James, for your entry on this. Next, we have Egret Passing Quietly by Nicole. Beautiful capture, stellar sharpness, birds perfectly in flight, the wings are spaced out nicely. You got these feathers that are just perfectly fully spaced. And then you have the background, which definitely helps to balance out the overall scene. From there, that brightness of the bird, the darkness of the background, it all comes together. And I'm definitely loving the feathers in this, because we didn't have many animal or wildlife photography for this theme, and I thought this was a great capture to be able to show just spacing within the beauty of the bird, and of course seeing it perfectly within this. And I do love that it's basically just about center, so love that breaking those rule of thirds going on. So thank you, Nicole, for sharing this with us. Alien Reveal by Jeff. Beautiful minimalistic styling, great lighting in this. Having the plant, it looks like it's just newly forming, right? So now it's like an alien reveal. Having the petals just perfectly like still standing up. I do feel like this is one of those plants that all of a sudden the leaves will stretch out. But in this moment in time that you captured it, having that nice curve going, the way you framed this looks great. Having the spacing between each grouping of leaves, definitely a different way of seeing the space between. Thank you, Jeff, for sharing this image with us. Next, we have Three in Silence. So here we are, beautiful negative spacing capture. The geese are flying mid-flight, showing how they're being spaced. From there, it's just that beautiful moment. Even the feathers, like you can see the wings in that, the top one, if you will, first and top. Seeing that the wings aren't fully sharp shows the space and time that it's taking and that it's moving. And positioning in this, I thought was great. I do love how the lighting is, your corners, it's a slight vignette going on. It definitely helps with that, with the way your eye takes in this information. So I thought this was interesting take on the space between. So thank you, Holly, for your capture. Only Path Home by Becky. The spacing and distance between the fence poles, but also seeing the difference within the two elements. So not only do you have the beautiful clean white snow on the bottom right corner, but then you also have that other half, which is up on top there, that has footprints in it. And you have the space between the footprints, you have the space between the poles. I do love that bottom negative space to help push your eye up into that area where there is all that detail going on. And, you know, it's like, what kind of footprints are those and what's going on? I think they're footprints. I could be wrong. I'm taking it as footprints. But having the spacing of the net, the spacing of the poles themselves, and then from there, just showing that simple styling. So thank you, Becky, for your entry. Stairway to Heaven. Great color. I love this coloring. Seeing the different types of structures going on, right? So you have that beautiful sky going, you have the steel container to the right, and then in between the two, you have these stairs going up. So not only do you have the spacing of that center with the stairs, but also the stairs are all nice and structured nicely, I should say. And then even the lines, if you're looking at the building itself, that steel structure going off onto the side, you have those great vertical lines with the great horizontal lines. There's just so much going on to see with spacing. And it's also a little bit more on the minimalistic side. So thank you, Max, for sharing this image with us. Next, we have Fly Me to the Moon. Space. The moon. So here we are, seeing that beautiful, beautiful coloring, the plane itself against that such a great, rich sky color. And then you have the outlay of the moon, and seeing the two together is really interesting. Definitely, obviously minimalistic. There's just those two elements within the scene. I love the placement of this. I even love how the plane itself is just slightly angled, where the wings come out to just about those edges, those corners from the top to the bottom. So thank you, Rich, for sending us this entry. I thought this was a very, very strong scene that fits the theme. So thank you. Next, we have Divine Light by Aileen. Interesting layering, very intriguing. This is like almost to me a spooky kind of way to photograph this kind of tree. Do love that dark shadowing, that negative shadow that's going on throughout the different layers of this tree. Even having that bottom darker really does help bring your eye up and into those other sections of branches that have that beautiful light going. Such a well and interesting capture. Again, as a photographer, probably wouldn't stop for this, but I do appreciate it and love the setup that you have here. So thank you, Aileen, for sharing this image with us. Next, we have The Faithful by Cara, sorry. Interesting scene. I don't know how you did it to get all these birds basically set up on these pillars, but good job. Perfect timing. So space between, we have the spacing between each pole, and then each pole is topped, or at least those main poles are topped with birds all facing essentially the same direction. I thought this is such a great moment that you had here. So even that, you even have the space going on with that bright ridge of clouds, into the nice structure of the poles and how it's all kind of leveled and layered into the scene. So thank you, Cara, for this capture. Great moment. Good timing. Next, we have Gate by Philippe. So before, when I was introducing the show, it was almost being able to show the different elements as far as even like a crowd and then isolation. So for me, I was thinking more so in the crowd in this area. So you have that person in basically in the front, a little bit bigger, isolated, whereas the crowd is behind them. So that was one element of spacing. The other element, obviously, is that gate itself or that opening, and then having the dark shadows going on either side and balancing it all out. So the space between, and then you have the people. Different ways to be able to see the scene. Absolutely thought it was interesting and stood out to me. So thank you, Philippe, for sharing this with us. Next, we have Floating in Fog. Beautiful moment. Nice minimalistic styling. Obviously, your fog is kind of taking over this area. It's very, very soft, perfect lighting. You have this great moment going on where you have somebody out there on that little rowboat who gives you a great center of interest. I do like how you place them. And from there, the spacing between the boat with the reeds, he's in between the two sets of reeds. So again, nice placement, definitely fits the theme. So thank you so much for sending us this image, Jim. Next is Escape by Gretchen. So seeing the water, isn't it interesting, the show? I mean, there's so many different subjects, right? There's so many different elements that we get to see. And here's one where it's water streaming down as black and white. You have these great little moments of the droplets coming and they're spaced out. So as you can see from the top going down, you have these two blips of the water coming out and then that perfect little spear or drop right in between. And then if you look a little bit further, then it's just another tiny little drop. And then you have a larger one. And, spacing it all out, I thought it was very interesting, even having the little like water arms, if you will. I don't know how to explain that. Coming out and giving you another element of spacing. Beautiful background, nice and soft. It gives you that minimalistic styling. So very interesting capture and a new subject matter for the show. So thank you so much, Gretchen, for this capture. Next is The Hole by Michelle. Seeing this, there's so many different layers going on. So not only do you have where the light is hitting, right? It's coming through the hull and giving you those two shapes, right? And then they have that negative spacing in between them. But if you look at the hole itself, there's the two rims. So basically the two edges that come around that gives you, again, another focus point for spacing. And then if you look through the hole, you then see that other structure that gives you the different elements. I thought that was very interesting. Not something I would stop and photograph, but definitely interesting for this theme and how you've captured this. So the way that flows within and all of that darkness. It's very interesting where your eyes just now pulled into where the light is. So thank you, Michelle, for sharing this view with us. Next, we have Between Night and Day, which is very fitting. You have up above, you have the space. You have that beautiful night sky. You have the foreground going on where you have the beautiful reflections going. And then all the way down in that foreground there, you have that nice darkness creeping in. And I thought this is a great scene, beautiful reflections going on. Having the sky, the stars, space being represented, and then from there, having the land in between the two realms, right? So you have this beautiful water and softness. I'm assuming, obviously, to be able to photograph the stars, the long exposure, which shows the time going through. Well done. So thank you so much, Dawn, for sharing this image with us. Next, we have Long Shadow by Alexandra. Interesting take. So seeing this as a different type of subject, having those great shapes and colors going through, but really you got to hone in on that shadow and seeing, I'm assuming it's a person, so seeing the legs creating the space between that little section there. I thought that was really interesting. Not only that, but you also have, if you will, the line that goes across at the bottom, and then of the actual like colors that are coming through, creating this different realm and also showing those textures. A lot going on, a lot of different ways to see it. Even like just seeing the smoothness, right, of the shadows, because now you don't see that texture, and then the textures that are there on that wall. So thank you, Alexandra, for presenting your way of seeing the space between. So Joanne, I'm going to bring you in. I don't know if you wanted to share a few words before we jump into the awards.
I've been having fun with the reaction button.
I hope I didn't go too fast. I'm sorry.
Like, it was just like, well, I'm blown away. Like, first of all, I'm blown away by the way you interpreted the theme.
Yeah.
No, and I mean that in a good way. I mean, I approached this initially thinking we were focusing more on a minimalism, but looking at your definition of the space between, I think it kind of enhanced and it brought so many more elements into the exhibit that it was just really mind-blowing. Some of the pieces were just amazing. I mean, I was typing away and reactioning away and having a lot of fun, but what a nice grouping. What a really nice grouping of artwork. And looking at the theme from your perspective versus my perspective, I think it was a kind of a combination of both. There was some amazing negative space and minimalistic art pieces in there, but also those other pieces where you were looking at division of the scene with space, using space as a way of dividing up a frame, whether it be through rock formations or land formations or just something else that was in the scene, was in the frame. I thought that was brilliant. Really, it was amazing interpretation. Really great.
Thank you. I do have to
Anyway,
say that that came down to all of the artists that participated in this open call, because yes, we did start with this idea, right? And I love that aspect. So here we have an idea and it evolved. So seeing the way everyone else took that information and presented their art was really fascinating. So it made me do like a pivot where I'm like, ooh, I have to see this a lot larger than what we originally envisioned. And I love that aspect. I absolutely do. So
yeah,
thank you everyone for
I know.
making me think outside of the box and being able
Yeah,
to create such a good dynamic of subjects and views. It's wild. So thank you everyone who has
yeah,
made it this far and into the show. So thank you.
yeah.
Thank you for making my job
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah, now I know why you're missing some hair. Wow. It's like, oh, this is a tough one.
It was
But
hard.
yeah, it was a tough one, but really nicely done. Really, congratulations to all of the artists that made it into the show. I just really think your work is amazing. Some of the pieces are just blew me away. The rocket ship or the
Oh, yeah.
launch,
Yep. Yep.
that just stunning. Just
Yeah.
stunning. I mean, the lighting, the way the rocket ship, the positioning of the initial part of that launch, and coming through into the frame, it was just really great. But I like rockets. And the moon. I wrote on the moon shot. I was like, oh, I can see Artemis too. I'm a nerd.
It's
All
okay.
right. So with
I think
all of
you're in the right
that,
space.
yeah. All right, Jess, let's get on with
All
those
right, all
awards,
right, all right.
shall we?
So here we are now at the awards. So first up, we have honorable mentions. And for this, I actually selected two pieces because I could not decide. First up, we have Between Night and Day by Dawn Reilly. So,
Bravo.
yes, congratulations, Dawn. I again, this was a tough theme because it evolved on me. And to have space and then, beautiful water and then the land in between, I just thought it was really fitting for the theme itself. So thank you, Dawn, for presenting this to us. Dawn, I don't know if you're with us, but if you are,
She's with us. She was.
yay! Dawn, if you are here, do you want to share a moment about where you were, what this was? What are we looking at? Where are you in the world?
I see her there. Yeah, I'm asking her to unmute.
I'm trying. Am I
There you
on?
are.
Hey,
It's
I hear you.
you. Hello,
Hi.
Dawn. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much. This is wonderful. And Jess, this is one of your favorite places, Assateague.
Oh, it is Assateague. Oh my
It is.
goodness. So
It is
Assateague Island down in, oh my goodness, where are we? In Maryland.
in Maryland.
Maryland?
Yeah, Maryland. Yeah. So beautiful area. If you're ever in on the East Coast over there, definitely stop by. But
And so it was, it was early on. I was there to do night sky photography. There was going to be meteor showers that night, but like you could see weather kind of coming in, didn't know how it was going to go. And you're out there, you have to just make the most of every moment that you're out and about. And that's what this is about.
that,
So,
that's so true.
um,
Well,
thank you
congratulations.
for including it because this has been a fabulous show.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed all the artwork.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Well, congratulations. And
Thank you.
I just love the clouds. It's everything's great. So thank you so much for entering this into the open call. So thank you, Dawn.
Thank you for
Congratulations.
including it. I'm really very grateful. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, moving on. The next honorable mention goes to 4 and 5 by Vince Barnes.
Yeah, I like
I
this one.
There was just something about this scene to me. So, here you have the grouping of geese and then the land itself, the atmospheric conditions that you have going on. There's just so many different elements going that just kind of pulled me in. And I thought it was great for an honorable mention. So, Vince, I don't know if you're with us. If you are, would you like to share a little bit about this moment?
I think he's here.
Feel free to unmute and jump in. If you don't want to, that's okay too. No?
I thought he might be the quote unquote Zoom user. Everybody else has a name, but I thought he jumped in before.
It's okay. All right.
Anyway,
Joanne, do you want to
I
share?
love this shot.
Okay.
Yeah, no, but it was fun. Like I had to, I'm like 4 and 5. What is he talking about? And I digging in and I see the five geese in the back. And again, the way they're going in opposite directions, it's just kind of perfectly laid out. And I love the title of it. And it just is a nice photograph and properly cropped, I might say.
Mhm.
A lot of, the fact that you have this very thin area where the subjects reside, and you cropped it down, you didn't let the heaviness of the top part of the image, which might be forest or something behind there, overtake the scene. I think that's really what helped this along, is the cropping as well.
Yes. Excellent. Well, congratulations, Vince. All right. So moving on. Next, we have third place, and that goes to Heading Back by Lynn Doran. Doran, I'm
And
sorry.
you click over, Jess? There you go. Oh, beauty.
Oh,
Yeah.
your internet was dragging.
Sorry.
There was just something about this. So your spacing of elements in this, the layering, the everything, even that tiny, tiny little vessel of a boat, and it just shows you how tiny we are. And the space between it all. So this definitely caught my eye. Thank you, Lynn, for entering it. Joanne, do you want to share a little bit before we see if Lynn's
Well,
on?
I think Lynn is with us, right? Is Lynn with us? I'm asking you to unmute, Lynn.
Okay. Yes, I am with you.
Oh,
There she
excellent.
is.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I was in Patagonia
Oh,
and on a ship going up a channel. I was quarantined to my cabin.
no.
Uh-oh.
My biggest
because I had COVID.
Oh no.
Thank goodness I had a balcony.
Yes.
And I was able to shoot from the balcony. So
Nice.
and so I am locked in my room looking at these people going up these canals and in between these mountains and yeah. So
well, you definitely caught a beautiful moment, even though you were confined to your room.
Very, very cool.
It was
very
a small
rugged.
ship. It was not one of those 4,000 people. It was like 100 people or something. So, it was lovely.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Like little
Thank you so
little
much.
glacier up
And
top as well.
There's another teeny little boat. Do you see it back there?
Oh my goodness, you're right.
Yeah, and I love the wake that this boat makes right here in the foreground.
Yeah. Oh wow. Excellent.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Excellent. All right. So now, next one is second place. And this award goes to Early Morning Takeoff by Nick McGuire. So loving the spacing, the perspective, the elements going on. The hot air balloon that's right in front of you, that tiny one all the way further back. There's just a bunch of elements going on, and just loving the colors, the shapes, going on within the hot air balloon. So this caught my eye, and congratulations, Nick, for getting second place. Joanne, do you want to share a little bit to see if Nick is on?
Yeah, I don't believe Nick is in the room with us. If he is,
feel free to
unmute, but I'm not seeing him in the
I'm here. I'm here.
You're here?
Hi, Nick.
I'm the Zoom one.
Oh, you're the Zoom user. Welcome,
Yeah.
Zoom user.
He's undercover.
Yeah, no, I usually use Teams when I'm doing these type of things. Yeah, my wife had a crazy idea about going on a hot air balloon. And we got tickets. And this is actually on the ground, so I was waiting for the balloon to fill up. And,
really?
Yeah, and so I was like, it was very chaotic on the ground, so I was kind of like just was trying to find like a more simplified kind of area.
Wow.
And we actually crash landed on the way down. So, and that kind of continued the tradition, because her dad also crash landed in a hot air balloon. So we both made it out okay. But it was a really good experience. Other than that.
Excellent. Well, I did not for whatever. My brain was seeing it as if I'm in another hot air balloon and in the sky, and there's two next to me and looking, but really you're standing on the ground looking up, and then this is your scene. So that's really cool to be able to understand a little bit more about your perspective when taking this. So very cool.
Thank you so much for picking me.
Excellent. You're welcome.
Thank you.
It's all blind, so I have no idea who's what when I'm doing all this. So congratulations.
Who's who?
Yeah, who? I don't know. But definitely loving the spacing and that you thought of this scene for this open call. So thank you so much. Moving on to first place. I feel like this is going to be a hard one.
There were so many.
I know. I feel like this is going to be a hard one. Nobody, don't judge me, but I was judging.
So funny.
Because I just, this is a hard exhibit, because everyone's way of seeing the different subjects and compositions, there's just so much of the possibility of what stood out to you, right? So we all have these different elements of what stood out. And I'll stop babbing because you all want to see who it is. All right. First place goes to Wall. Fly Me to the Moon by Rich LaBella. There's just I know, the colors, the representation of space by showing the moon, the beautiful way that the overall composition is, the minimalistic styling, the way the plane is positioned over in the frame itself, but also how it's just there. It's like it's shooting towards the moon. There's just something about this that I kept coming back to. This is kind of, I guess, closer to what I envisioned with the theme itself when we originally were sitting down and trying to create this open call and what we thought was going to be the show. So thank you, Rich LaBella, for presenting this scene and taking first place.
Yeah, I'll let Rich talk in a second, but what I think makes this is the fact that that plane is red against the blue. It just pops it right out. If it were, an ordinary white plane, it probably wouldn't have as much impact as far as within the frame. Also, perfectly utilizing rule of thirds here and having a lot of negative space, I think really speaks to what I envisioned as the space between, or the minimalistic style. So, Rich, I know you're in the room. How about you say a few words? Oh, that's a shame. He was just here. He might have gotten cut off with bad internet or something.
Oh, man, I would have loved to hear a few words from him about where he was in this moment that he captured.
Well, here on Long Island, we do have the air shows that happen every year around 4th of July. We have the Blue Angels and all that, and they usually have a lot of different aircraft in the sky performing for lots of people along the shorelines of Fire Island, and this might be
during
that time of year. Yeah. But again, just the fact that image, the plane itself is red, it just pops right off the frame, which is, to me, makes it really exciting.
So congratulations to everybody who made it in. Congratulations to everyone who got that further element of the awards. So congrats to all. We will move forward into thanking everyone who've participated, who has taken a moment out of their time to be able to enter into the open call, to be a part of tonight, and to really carve out the time to be with us. Thank you so much. I hope you all had such a great way of seeing the art, hearing my 2 cents behind each scene and how I viewed them. You can see the show. The show will stay up on our website forever as the site lasts or continues on. And then from there, I do want to say, did you know? If anyone's interested in any of the art that was seen tonight, let us know and we'll be able to make further connections as far as any kind of purchase. So thank you for joining us tonight.